Welcome to Looking at Legal Stuff. Today we have 3 hearings in a case with a couple where Mom has filed 2 different contempt motions in an effort to get Dad to cover some of the costs she says he's required to pay. In the first contempt motion, she wants to be reimbursed for the plane tickets she had to buy their daughter to come visit her for spring break, despite the fact that Dad is the one ordered to pay for transportation. In the second contempt motion, Mom wants to be reimbursed for the rental car she needed when she flew out for their daughter's graduation. She claims Dad promised to help with any extra costs, but now he's trying to screw her over. She also wants Dad to pay their daughter's $1,000 hospital bill that she says Dad is required to pay under their child support agreement. She claims Dad is trying to stick their daughter with the bill now that she's turned 18. But what will Mom have to say when she finds out that the child support agreement that requires Dad to pay medical expenses also orders her to pay them too? Let's find out.
All right, let's go to Marlene Wanzer Miranda and John Miranda. I see Mr. Miranda and Miss Height. And is Marlene Wanzer Miranda here?
I'm here. Yeah.
There you are. Okay. All right. All right, this is a contempt hearing for failing to it says pay for daycare and long distance
Travel. Yeah.
expense. I think that's really what the focus is.
Yeah. Yeah, they live in Florida now. So she was supposed to come home and she didn't make it home for Christmas, and he did not buy her ticket for spring break. And I kept sending him messages. Hey, I found a ticket for this much. And he ignored me, and then was gone the whole week before she was supposed to leave and was ignoring our daughter. So I went ahead and made arrangements, and I ended up paying a lot of money for a ticket that he's supposed to pay for.
And she did come home then during spring break?
Yes, she came home for spring break. Yeah, I hadn't seen her for like 8 months.
Okay. Mr. Miranda, part of the response was the problems you ran into at Christmas time, and it doesn't sound like that's an issue today. The issue really we'll focus on is the spring break travel expenses. So if you want to address that, go ahead.
Your Honor, I fully agree. I had not made arrangements for the spring break travel. Hope's grades were in jeopardy of her not graduating. The expense that I have gone through with a senior and all the graduation stuff that's all involved in everything. Honestly, sir, I just ran out of money, and it wasn't, I never received anything from Marlene telling me about ticket prices or anything like that. She may have sent it directly to our daughter, because that's pretty much how we communicate, is through our daughter and everything. But I had also told Hope that I plan to, after she graduated, send her home for a longer period of time over the summer. And I had to actually travel that week for work. So it was just a bad time overall. And honestly, Your Honor, I just ran out of the money. As Marlene had mentioned, a very expensive plane trip. I had spent the money to get her into the, during the Christmas time. And unfortunately, due to bad weather, the trip was canceled there. And I couldn't afford it, sir.
Ms. Height, any comment on this issue?
Good morning, Your Honor. I did have a phone conversation with this sweet girl, and she was this was shortly before spring break, and she reported to me that she'd not been able to see her mom at Christmas, and she wanted to see her mother. And the extent, she was really basically expressing her disappointment, which I fully understood, because at the time this case was settled, it was very clear what the expectations were. And Ms. Wanzer had been assured that this was what was going to happen. And so I was disappointed for everybody involved that it didn't happen. I understand that expenses come up, and the flights around Christmas time, it sounds like, was a nationwide nightmare. I wish something could have been settled sooner than spring break, and I'm very happy that they got to have that time. But I guess my only real cogent comment for you this morning is that I did speak with her, and she definitely wanted to spend some time with her mom.
Okay.
Your Honor, may I
Sure. Go
say
ahead.
something? John has stated that, he's financially extended and everything, but Hope was only home a few days and he went and bought a brand new car. So that to me does not sound like he's very financially strapped. Also, he knew spring break was coming and he could have put a ticket on layaway. He's an adult. He knows how to do this, and comes, also what's in the papers that I had mentioned is that he's supposed to, he offered and said that he would help me with accommodations to come if I flew out to see Hope. I have a ticket. I'm going out for her graduation. That was what she wanted. So that's what I'm doing. And he has offered no help with that. And that was another over $900 ticket. So I feel like he should have to help me with that. And that's just, for compensation for him not getting her in December. Now, the thing about the December thing is he made the arrangements after she'd been out of school for 3 days for her to leave Christmas Eve. And all of that could have been avoided if he would have had the ticket ahead of time and she would have left earlier on the day that she was supposed to. So the weather thing happened, but that's not what's supposed to happen. She was not supposed to be flying out late night on Christmas Eve, for crying out loud, and then had her returning home on New Year's Eve. Do you want your daughter traveling alone on those days? I don't want my daughter traveling alone anyways, but come on, it's a little bit out there. So, John waited till the last minute. That was end of story. Just like he did with this one too. So I've said my piece.
All right.
And now we don't have to worry about it. She's 18.
All right. Let me tell you how I'm going to rule here. And again, the amount requested doesn't relate to anything at Christmas. It's disappointing that the daughter wasn't able to visit at Christmas, but I think some circumstances that Mr. Miranda could not control occurred. Also, Mr. Miranda, I think, has been honest about his situation today. Both parties know that the order is very specific, that Mr. Miranda is to pay for a trip at spring break and a trip at Christmas. He did not pay for the one at Christmas, and despite the fact he indicates he couldn't afford it, he's still obligated to pay that. So I'm going to find contempt. I'm not going to sign this order as it's presented to me, so I'm going to go through and indicate the changes on it. So Mr. Miranda will be responsible for a payment of $902.90. I'm not going to award the interest that's being requested.
In Your Honor, it is stated in the papers that he's supposed to, he offered himself to help me with accommodations if I fly out there to come see our daughter. And I have purchased the ticket.
Okay, well, that isn't part of this motion right now. So one of the things that I can only do is deal with the motion that's in front of me. Okay. So the motion in front of me is, what do I do about spring break? And it's appropriate that Mr. Miranda reimburse you for the airline ticket. Just hang on a minute here. I'm going to strike the part that indicates that it was in bad faith. I don't find it was in bad faith, but he's still responsible for paying it. The minimum civil penalty on a contempt is $100. So I am going to assess that. All right, so I've gone through the order and indicated the amount owing is $902.90. I've assessed the $100 contempt penalty, and I've removed the bad faith language. And with that, I will sign the order.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And so, Your Honor, what is the link that he has to repay me for this.
Mr. Miranda, do you have a time frame when you can make that payment?
I would ask for 30 days, Your Honor.
All right, so on number 11, where it indicates contempt can be corrected,
Thank you.
I will say pay within 30 days.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, I have, next case I'm going to call is number 1 on my docket. This is Wasner Miranda or Miranda and John Miranda. This is cause number 10-3-005-051. So let's see, I see you, sir. So in this case, I have a conflict. That just means that either myself or somebody at my firm previously represented one of the parties. And that being the case, it's not fair for me to make a decision for you, because then it would, I might have information that I wouldn't have received from the court file. So what we do in those cases is we just set them over 1 week to allow a different judicial officer to be here to be able to make decisions for you. So given that, we're going to set this matter over to August 3rd. So just appear same way you did today on August 3rd, that same time, same place, 1 week from now. All right. Thank you for being here. That's it for today.
Okay, next let's go to the Marlene Wanzer Miranda and John Miranda matter. This is cause number 10-3-505-1. I'll double check to see if we have both parties here. It looks like Marlene Wanzer, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome to you. And then Mr. John Miranda, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right, welcome to you also. This is a motion for contempt brought by Ms. Wanzer related to medical expenses in Florida and also expenses related to travel for graduation of Hope. So I wanted to, before we get started, I wanted to ask Ms. Wanzer about the service. So let's just kind of just look at that first, because I had a question about that. And let me pull up the documents. And when I refer to service, I'm referring to the documents that Ms. Wanzer's filed and that were given to Mr. Miranda. So on, let's see, June 29th, it looks like John Miranda was served with documents, and it says contempt hearing documents, and then it was signed by Marlene Wanzer. So question for you, Ms. Wanzer, it was not clear to me which documents were given to Mr. Miranda.
Your Honor, I mailed all the documents to him because he lives in Florida. And then I did a service to the post office, and then I turned in the receipts, and then I returned that I got a signature card and that they had signed that they had received the service. And so I turned those in.
So you submitted the return receipt, like the
Yes.
signed returned receipt. When did you turn that into the clerk's office?
I believe it was last week.
Okay, so I'm not seeing that. Let me check with Mr. Miranda. Mr. Miranda, did you receive documents from Ms. Wanzer related to the contempt?
I did. I got a motion for contempt hearing packet, FL all families 165.
Okay, and did you receive an order to show cause?
The
The 2-page document.
All I got is the filed Superior Court clerk order to go to court for contempt hearing and the motion for contempt hearing.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what we're looking at. So let me touch base with Mr. Miranda. There's 2 ways to approach this. One, it's unclear to me from the record what documents Ms. Wanzer filed or gave to you. I've heard what you've said. So technically it's deficient. Also, she was the one that mailed it. The party that they themselves can't mail it. There has to be a third party. So we could come back and address this at another day and she can redo all those documents and steps, or you can waive those procedural rights and proceed today. Do you have a preference?
Your Honor, I wish to proceed today so we can be done with this.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So noting that Mr. Miranda waives the deficiencies in service, we'll move forward with the hearing. So I'll hear first from Ms. Wanzer and then from Mr. Miranda. Just so you're aware, I did read the material submitted by Ms. Wanzer, and I did read the response by Mr. Miranda. So Ms. Wanzer, if you want to go ahead and just state your reasons why you think contempt is appropriate.
Sure, Your Honor. Just that they moved to Florida, and that John had made some pretty big promises to Hope to get her to move to Florida with him. She did not really want to go. He is, assured the Ann Height that, he would pay for her round trips to come home for vacations, which did not happen, and was found in contempt for March when she came home because he did not pay. And moving forward, going to graduation, I had asked that, Hope, pick us up, as she had a broken car. And so I said, well, can you have your dad? I don't have the money to rent cars. He made it nothing but harder for me to come. I'm on a very limited income. I'm on permanent disability. And he had stated that he would help me any way possible in accommodating me to come to Florida if I come to see her round trip. So that was that one. And I only put in for 50% of what I paid. I just thought that was fair. And also,
could I ask you a question on that, Ms. Wanzer?
Sure.
Related to your travel expenses to Florida, is there a court order that requires Mr. Miranda to pay for a rental car for travel expenses?
No, it was just stated that it was kind of a open statement there that he would just help me with accommodations when I came, if I were to come round trip.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And then why don't you tell me about the medical expenses?
The medical expenses, she's on his insurance, and she got very sick a week before graduation and had to go to the ER. Also, she had, told her dad that she was sick, and he was just like, whatever. And she had called me all day the day that she went, and she just, Mom, I just don't feel well. She got really sick. And then I said, well, make a doctor's appointment for tomorrow. By the end of the evening, she couldn't bear it. And I said, well, go to the ER. And so she tried to go to urgent care, and eventually she couldn't. She went to the ER and had to have a procedure. She was very sick and had to have medications for afterwards. Anyways, so this is, like I said, a week before graduation. And then she did ultimately get better. And she, then John handed her, of course, the processing with the hospital and everything. So it was after graduation that they got the bill after what insurance paid. And John had handed it to her and says, here you go, kid. Welcome to being an adult. And she called me kind of freaking out. Mom, what do I do? Because, I just graduated. I only work part-time. And, how am I supposed to pay this? It's over $1,000, I believe. So, anyways, I just kind of feel like she was still in school, that he should be taking care of her.
So thank you, Ms. Wanzer. Hope turned 18 on April 4th.
Yes.
And the hospitalization was middle of May, I believe, the 15th.
Middle of May. And she was still in high school. Yes.
Okay. And then the temporary child support order, I saw that the child support order related to uninsured medical expenses was dated December 14th of 2012. So that's the document that I'm looking at. Is that the same document you're looking at that relates to uninsured medical expenses?
I'm unaware about any, yeah, I think so, but there was the child support was completely stricken.
I don't see that order of 2012 was ever stricken, so it's still in effect.
All I know is that there was never any child support. John had waived it. We had decided together that we had waived it. Also, and
is there an order that says that child support was waived?
No, we did it privately.
Okay. All right.
With support enforcement.
Okay. All right. And then let me ask you, looking at that temporary child support order from December of 2012, it says that there's a division of responsibility that Ms. Wanzer would pay 31% and Mr. Miranda would pay 69%, and that order did not necessarily contemplate continuing obligations past the age 18, except for post-secondary education, where it specifically said that provision was reserved for the future. So if my understanding and assuming that order is still in effect, there's not an explicit provision that says that past age 18, the uninsured medical expense is obligatory on both parties. What's your response to that? Can you help me understand your?
Well, my response to that is that she was still in primary, she was still in high school. So if you're going to extend it through secondary school, wouldn't it, doesn't that apply through high school?
Well, the one specific thing that said that was reserved for future ruling would be post-secondary support, post-secondary schooling. So that was reserved. So there's no explicit mention of it at that time. So the other question is the billing statement that you submitted that lists, the insurance coverage and the amount owing, says the responsible party is Hope Miranda. What's your comment on that?
Because she, of course, was the patient, so they sent it to her.
Okay.
It's under John's insurance, of course.
Okay. All right. All right. Very good. What other information do you want to share about your motions for contempt?
Well, just that, that he has stated in the previous court hearing that we had in contempt, that he had made statements that he was didn't pay for Hope's plane ticket because he was providing her with a ticket to come home for the summer for an extended stay, which he hasn't. In fact, I just purchased her a ticket to come home next week.
Is that part of your motion for contempt? I didn't see that.
No, I'm just saying it shows to character of just how I can't count on his word even in paper.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Wanzer. Mr. Randall, what's your perspective on the two issues? Or I guess the one issue on the medical expenses, because I think the travel graduation expenses, there's no order that requires that. So I'm denying that motion for the contempt of that portion. So the focus is on the medical expenses at this point.
Yes, sir. So I provide insurance. I will continue to provide health insurance for Hope, my daughter, as long as I can keep her covered. But I had told her previously to schedule a doctor's appointment when she had first told me that she was having some pains. I was not like, whatever. I told her to go see our family doctor and schedule an appointment. Hope is a procrastinator and didn't do that immediately. So a day or two after she had scheduled an appointment after talking with her mom, she never made it to that appointment because she went to the emergency room that evening. I kind of had a conversation with Hope after returning from the emergency room, just letting her know that, the costs are going to be exorbitant because you went to the emergency room. Everything is, it seems like almost double. And I said, if you'd have gone to the doctor's appointment, something may have been able to be done at the doctor's, which would have been relatively cheaper, and the insurance would have covered a good majority of it. Granted, the insurance covered almost more than 90% of the emergency room, so that was great. I didn't think that it was out of question to help my daughter understand that the process of going to the emergency room, that a bill comes along with that. I asked her to contact the hospital, let them know the situation that she is in, that she just turned 18. She's still, just about to graduate from high school, in the hopes that maybe they would either waive this or move it to, to a minimal payback. That was my ultimate hope for it, Your Honor. And in asking Hope to take charge of that, it was, she would like to be treated as an adult. And, with the treatment of, asking to be treated like an adult comes this responsibility. So I asked her to take care of it. Next thing I know, I'm being served with papers as far as the contempt hearing here.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you, if I may. So the temporary child support order of December 2012 indicates that there's a division of responsibility for uninsured medical expenses, a 31-69 split. My question, I guess, is that as the person providing the insurance to the insured, Hope, if there's a remaining balance, the obliger or the party responsible for that is the policyholder, is it not?
I would say that ultimately, yes, they would come after me if Hope didn't pay it. Yes.
Right. Yeah. If Hope decides not to pay it, then they're going to come after you for payment.
That is correct.
So And this just happened in May, and now we're just barely into August. Okay. Okay. All right. That's helpful. Let me just look at one item here.
Your Honor, when you have a second, I have one more question for you.
I'm ready. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, now that Hope is 18, has graduated high school, and she is working. When is she actually considered an adult, and where does our parenting agreement kind of end when she is considered an adult?
So there's a parenting plan that was issued on September 30th of 2022. And then when a person turns 18, the parenting plan is done, because she's a person of age of majority at this point. So she's no longer a minor.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Ms. Wanzer, do you have any just brief response?
Not really, Your Honor, just that, I've been on disability now for a few years, and I live on, minimal funds, obviously, because they don't pay very much. So I just feel like, John has taken every advantage that he can of me in the past and still does. So that's just, that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So there are two grounds which Ms. Wanzer brought a motion for contempt. The first was the travel expenses to Florida. So any order or any motion for contempt necessarily needs to be based on a court order, and then the allegation needs to be that a person violated or did not follow that court order. So as I mentioned earlier, there was no court order that required Mr. Miranda to make any expenditures related to travel for the graduation trip or what have you. So I'll deny that portion of the contempt. The other portion is that the medical expenses for the emergency room visit. It sounds like she wasn't doing well for a period of time. There was encouragement to take a different action. She got the help that she needed, whether it was timely or maybe a little later than hoped for. And then there's about a $1,100 bill that's outstanding. So the child support and health insurance is a little bit different in that health insurance generally parents can keep their children on their coverage up until about age 25 is pretty common across the country. And here we have Mr. Miranda's indicating that he's the obliger, he's the contracting party with the insurance company. So eventually they would come after him for the balance. But here there is an existing temporary child support order. It's temporary and it's old, but it's from 2012. It requires Ms. Wanzer to pay child support, but we're not here on that issue. We're here on that says that if there's uninsured medical expenses, then there's a split of 31% and 69%. So there's no clear indication that the child support obligation ends at age 18, because it's often common that children will turn 18 and still be involved in educational pursuits at the secondary level, high school. So here, I think that obligation continues. So both parties are responsible for the $1,049.89 in a calculus of 31% of Ms. Wanzer and 69% of Mr. Miranda. So that's what the parties are obligated to pay the hospital. As far as the contempt, I think there needs to be a willful and bad faith refusal to comply with the court order. So here, the court order is over 11, well, almost 11 years old. There was in a relatively short period of time from the provision of services until the contempt was filed. There was some question related to age of majority and the like. So I'm going to deny the contempt, but just make clear that the parties are responsible in that percentage division for payment to the hospital for the services rendered to Hope. So I'm denying both motions for contempt. However, both parties kind of have a clear idea of what the responsibility is under the child support order from 2012, that 31% to Ms. Wanzer and 69% to Mr. Miranda. the parties have any questions, Ms. Wanzer or Mr. Miranda?
No, sir.
Yeah, Your Honor, actually I do. How am I, I live on $1,000 a month. So paying $300, what am I looking at there?
So that would be something that you could check with the hospital and work out payment arrangements through them. I know a lot of hospitals have charitable causes and they have some flexibility in their payment plans, and they work with people. When people don't reach out to them, that's when they get concerned, I think I've seen in the past, but that would be your responsibility to work out something with the hospital.
Your Honor, if I may, just to bring it up, is Hope gets a stipend of Social Security benefits.
Your Honor,
that should probably
object.
go to that.
No, Your Honor, I object.
So Ms.
Cut
Wanzer,
off.
as a general rule in my courtroom, I allow people to finish, and your objection is denied. There's not a legal basis for the objection. Mr. Miranda, you can finish your thought.
Yes, basically what I was saying is Hope gets a stipend from the Social Security that she gets along with food stamps that are provided. I watched this child since she has been getting it, because I have nothing to do with it, waste this money. So I think it would be very appropriate for this to go forward to that. I do understand your ruling is I'm obligated for the 69%. And if you rule I'm obligated to that, I will pay that bill to that. But Hope being an adult should have some kind of responsibility towards this.
Okay, thanks. So I won't make a ruling on that. That's something that the parties can work through. I get where the parties are coming from and teaching responsibility and accountability and financial wherewithal. I get that. So I won't rule on that. The parties can figure that out. Ms. Wanzer, any last comments?
Yes, I do want John to know that she was cut off months ago from Social Security.
Okay.
And that was as soon as she was 18. She no longer got any more money.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you both. That'll conclude today's hearing.
All right,
Thank you, Your Honor.